Dear friends, good afternoon. Today we are going to discuss about objectives of communication skill. In our earlier class, we talked about introduction of communication. We discussed about the definition and then how do we master these communication skills in order to enhance and improve our communication. Today, we are going to discuss in detail the various objectives of communication. As a student, you all understand the importance of communication. The first thing that we often come in or come across is when we share information, we inform others about a piece of information, a piece of data, a piece of fact, a piece of some kind of fiction that is there in our mind. Sharing the information is one of the basic objectives of communication. You cannot deny the fact that whenever you want to communicate, there is a thought in your mind which you want to share with others. That is the major role of communication. That is the key objective of communication. That is informing others about your thought process, informing others about your ideas, about your viewpoints, and about what you have understood and how you have understood the concept. So therefore, the first objective of communication is how do we use this communication in order to inform our viewpoint, in order to inform our opinion. The second objective is to educate. Right now, I'm using this means in order to educate you all about the objectives of communication. This is a one-way communication wherein I'm using this video in order to make you all see what is being written through the form of a slide, and then through my voice you can hear what is being told or that has been informed to you all. So this particular platform is helping you in order to educate yourself, in order to make yourself understand the importance of communication. So in our day-to-day life, in order to educate, in order to learn, in order to explore the new things, communication plays a very key or important role. The next thing is to motivate. Whenever we are talking about communication, we also communicate in order to motivate others. When we want to tell others that yes, they are capable enough of doing things, yes, they can reach up their targets or they can do certain given tasks, we have to communicate them. Unless and until it is not communicated, you cannot see the person doing or moving ahead towards their assigned task. I want you to draw your attention towards a kid who is very young, that is an infant of say a couple of months year old. In order to grab the attention, in order to attract the eye contact of that baby, what do? We create certain noise. We either snap click or we make certain noises or we clap our hand in order to get the attention on it, in order to grab the attention of that infant, because that infant cannot understand your words but still can listen to the sound and react towards the sound. That is, you are motivating that infant, you are motivating that child to look towards you. That is the way we are communicating. The next is to integrate. Often when you have to connect one goal to the other, when you are communicating, you need to understand that communication is not one day or one single time process. The communication itself says that it is a flow of thought which goes on and on till the time you're going to end up your assigned task. So the moment once when we are talking about this objective of communication, that is to integrate, you integrate by reaching up to the right candidate, to informing them, through letting them know what they have to do, how they have to do, and when they have to do, so that they can pursue their individual task or the organizational task and achieve their given assignments. In order to achieve this, you have to build up the relationship. That rapid building happens only when you are good at communication skill. You need to understand that with the help of your communication, you can also develop your interpersonal skills, not only with the others, even with your own self. So for example, if you are not communicating the right thoughts to your mind, you turn to become pessimistic. So therefore, if you are talking about integration, it is very important to connect your thoughts. It is very important to connect your positive thought with the other positive thoughts so that you become an optimistic person. Whenever we are talking about relationship, whenever we are talking about building on getting connected with the new people, you have to communicate. Let me give you an example. You all must be using WhatsApp or Facebook. Whenever you are using WhatsApp or Facebook, when you see a person, when you see a profile which is really very attractive, immediately what you do is you send a friend request. Why are you sending a friend request? You want to get connected. The moment once someone is accepting your friend request, you get connected to that other person. Communication is helping you to get related to the other person, to get connected to the other person so that you can enrich your network skills. The next is to promote. Every now and then we watch television when we are playing games on our Android mobiles, or even when we are watching YouTube channel, we come across to the different advertisements. These advertisements are promoting some or the other product. So whenever we are promoting any piece of information, it is nothing but it's a part of communication. The objective is to help people know more about the product, to help people know more about the different ideas that are shared by the producers or by the manufacturers, so that the person can get attracted and can work accordingly. To entertain, you must have seen movies like Pushpak Vimanam, where there was no voice at all. It is a silent movie, beautifully charactered by Kamla Hassan and Amla. But still, you will see that the communication is done. Every time you need to remember, when we talk about communication, it is not necessary to be a verbal communication. It could be an non-verbal communication too. So therefore, when we talk about communication, communication also happens when we talk about entertainment. There is a proper flow of thoughts, there is a proper flow of words, there is a proper flow of expressions which helps us to communicate, which help us to understand what the other person is telling us. Watching a cartoon show or watching a fun show where you have lots of characters which are doing comedy, then immediately you get attracted, you are entertained, and you feel relaxed and comfortable. Now, when we talked about the objectives of communication, whether it was to inform, whether it was to educate, whether it was to entertain, whether it was to promote, whether it was to relate or get connected, we all understand that communication has to flow. The thought process that is there in your mind has to come out of your mind in the form of words or in the form of some or the other expression, so that it could be properly communicated to the other person. This process of communication is divided into 6 steps. Unless and until you don't apply these 6 steps in a proper way, your process of communication will remain incomplete. And then there may be a chance of miscommunication or gap created in your communication. So as a person who is understanding the processes of communication, I want you all to understand, and I want you all to focus on all these 6 steps in your day-to-day life. The first thing is initiate with the message. What kind of message it is, how well you are, how well you are in drafting the message is very, very important. How efficient you are in conveying the message is something which is very important. So therefore, whenever you are thinking of communicating, the first thing that you have to do is draft your message. What I want to communicate and to whom I want to communicate. Know your audience and then accordingly draft the message. The second thing that you have to do is you need to pick up the idea and you need to understand how you are going to encode it. Say, for example, if I say a simple sentence, get the book, the person whosoever is next to me may get the book, may carry the book and hand it over to me. Now, listen to me. Get the book. Now, immediately there is an order in that particular sentence. Can you please get the book? There is a request. So understand how you want to encode, how you want to send the information from your end to the receiver's end. Now, there has to be a proper channel. Unless and until there is no medium, you cannot reach up to your audience. Now, I cannot see you. You can view me still with the help of this video. You can still listen to me with the help of this video, because there is a channel which is helping us to bridge this gap. So whenever you are watching this YouTube video, with the help of YouTube, with the help of this medium, I was able to bridge the gap, between my speaker, between the speaker and the listeners. So therefore, you have to understand that it is very important that there is a proper medium in order to transmit the information, in order to flow the transfer information from the speaker to the listener. The next is the listener should be able to understand, should be able to listen, and should be able to decode the information that is encoded by the speaker. Decoding means knowing exactly what is being told. If you cannot understand, you may again raise the question. You may say, can you come up again? Can you repeat it? Can you say it again? So whenever there is a gap, we come across with a question with a request to once again say the same thing that has been informed. So therefore, you have to understand that whenever we are talking about the fourth stage, that is the receiver stage, the receiver is going to decode the information. After decoding the information, we want the receiver to act in order to give us a feedback, in order to give us some kind of clue that yes, the information was properly absorbed by the communicator. So therefore, we need to have a proper response from the end of the receiver. Say for example, if I make a call to you and if I say hello, unless and until I don't hear something from your end, I cannot understand whether you are listening to my words or not. So therefore, in reciprocation, when you say hello or hi or yes, I'm answering to your call, how are you? Then I proceed ahead. This is the way we need to understand that the receiver has to decode and then encode with another piece of information so that the sender, who was till the time the receiver was able to understand and till the time the receiver was able to decode. Once when the receiver is going to respond, receiver steps into the shoes of the sender and then the sender becomes a receiver. And finally, there has to be a proper feedback. There has to be a proper understanding that yes, the process is complete. I was able to inform the right information to the right person in the right way, and the information is rightly absorbed by the listener. And then I have a proper feedback stating that the listener was able to understand and interpret the information in a right way. Here is a proper pictorial picturization of the process of communication. We need to understand that there is a sender and a receiver at both the ends. And at both the ends, the sender and receiver is sharing a piece of information, that is a message. This message is first encoded by the sender through a channel, which is decoded by the recipient. The moment once when the recipient decodes the information, then he answers it back. When he answers it back, then sender step into the shoes of a receiver and receiver steps into the shoe of a sender, and then the coding is done, that is encoded by the receiver. The channel is the same and then it is decoded by the sender. So always remember, if this process of communication is applied in our day-to-day communication, there won't be any cliches, there won't be any kind of hitch, there won't be any kind of gap. So we need to understand that the process of communication follows 6 steps. We have to apply these 6 steps in order to create a complete communication for better understanding and for better communication. So when we talk about types of communication, till now we were talking about the various objectives and then we talked about the process. Now let us understand what are the various kinds of communication. Now, when we talk about communication, communication happens at different stages with different kind of people. When it is at a personal end, say for example, you are sharing some piece of information with your father, with your brother, with your sister, or with your mother, that is at your personal level or at your personal end. So such kind of information, whenever you are communicating in an informal way with your family members, with your friends, with your buddies, that is called as personal communication. Then second type is the business communication. Under this business communication, there are different levels, there are different kinds, which we are going to talk in detail. The first is internal communication. Within an organization, when the communication is flowing from one person to the another person in the purview of the organization, that is called as internal communication. Say for example, you are sharing some piece of information with your colleague, you are sharing some piece of information in your campus, in your college campus, from one friend to the another friend, between one section student to the other section student, that is called as internal communication. When this communication purview moves out of the boundary of the organization, then it is called as external communication, which is outside, which is beyond the organizational boundary, which is outside the organization boundary, and that is called as external communication. External communication happens with customers, external communication happens with bankers, with the shareholders, with the stakeholders, with the different people with whomsoever you are associated in order to communicate. The next is upward communication. We all understand that in an organization, there is a hierarchy which everybody follows. This hierarchy can be in two ways, from bottom to top and from top to bottom. When it is from bottom to top, that is called as upward communication. Say, for example, if I'm talking about a student informs about his problem to his class representative or class monitor. The class monitor then talks it or discusses it with the faculty coordinator. The faculty coordinator, if feels that this is a problem which has to be reported or escalated to the head of the department, he or she may inform it to the head of the department. And if the problem is really of a very high intensity, then the problem may get escalated to even the director or member of management. This kind of information, the flow which is happening from the lower level to the topmost level, is called as upward communication. If this same process is moving from upward to the downward, then it is called as downward communication. Say, for example, there is a notice which is issued by the director of the organization. Then the director had shared this notice to the HODs. HODs have informed it to the faculty coordinator. Faculty coordinator have informed to the class representative, and from the class representative, it has reached to each and every member of the class. Such kind of information is called as downward communication. Now, formal communication. This formal communication happens when you are interacting at a formal level. Say, for example, you are participating in a debate, you are participating in an extempo, you are participating in a meeting, you are a part of some or the other event wherein you are representing an organization. Your communication would be formal. Whenever you are attending an interview, your way of speech would be a formal communication. When it is with a friend, when it is with a colleague, but and in a very informal way, such kind of communication is called as informal communication. Lateral communication happens between one department to the other within an organization where the levels remain the same. The hierarchy will not change. You need to remember this, that the hierarchy will remain the same, and here the level will also remain same, but the sections may vary, the positions may vary, and then the position may vary from one department to the another. Say, for example, you are a class representative of BBA first semester. You are interacting with the class representative of BBA first semester but section B. So both of you are at same position, are at same bar, but your communication is lateral from one section to the another. The next is mass communication. Reading from the newspaper, watching television in order to get the information from mass medias. You have n number of apps. You also get the information via Facebook, via LinkedIn. So always remember, whenever the communication is spread from one person to the number of people, that is called as mass communication, wherein the public will be informed about a small piece of information or in detail about the information. And here the numbers may be huge, the numbers may be the audience. When I'm talking about the numbers, I'm in relationship with the audience, the conveyor of the message will be one, but it has to be approached by, it has to reach to the number of audiences who are many in numbers. The next is grapevine communication. This grapevine communication is used in order to create confusion. Wherever the confusion is not clear, wherever the confusion is just for the sake of gossip, or when you want to really change the track of the communication, which is out of track, which you are speaking just to distract others, such kind of communication is called as grapevine communication. Be very careful whenever someone is using such kind of communication. They may be very distractive, and it may also be hampering towards your studies. So these are the various types of communication which we need to understand as a student of BBA or BCA, because we are pursuing our professional courses. May not be using right now, but probably after a couple of years of time, you people are going to use all these types of communication in your day-to-day life. Then the last topic of this particular chapter is barriers of communication. Whenever the process is not in proper flow, if there is any kind of hindrance in your communication, that hindrance is called as barrier of communication. These barriers may vary from person to person, from place to place, or from situation to situation. Let us understand what are the common barriers, what are the different kinds of barriers which happens in day-to-day communication. The first one is linguistic barrier. If I am using a language which is not known to you, then then it creates the linguistic barrier. My mind is engrossed into something and I'm speaking, but my flow of thought is not connecting to the audience. There is misconnection. There is some kind of, there is a disconnect between my thoughts. There is something which is not getting connected by the listeners, or even the speaker is finding it very difficult to connect from one piece of sentence to the other. It happens because of the psychological barrier. Say, for example, you were getting ready for your college. All of a sudden, when you started to move out of your house, you saw that your shoe is torn. You are very busy on that particular day. There is a proper assignment which you have to submit. There is a guest who is coming to your college. You have to attend it, otherwise you miss it. So how do you feel? Psychologically, you find it a bit difficult. You are disturbed because of some or the other reason. Mentally disturbance is called as psychological barrier. Emotional barriers. When we are distracted because of our emotional imbalances in our life, then it creates a barrier. Say, for example, all of a sudden, you and your friend have submitted the same assignment. Your teacher appreciated your friend, not you, whereas the assignment was completely done and prepared by you. Now here, because the appreciation has directly reached to your friend, not to you, you will be emotionally disturbed. Such kind of barriers which are generated because of the emotional outbreak is called as emotional barrier. Physical barrier. There are instances where because of the noise, because of the rain, because of the net disconnect, lots of physical barriers may stop you from getting communicated in a right way. Cultural barriers. We are going to do this with the help of an activity so that to understand what are the cultural barriers. Let me give you an example. Say, for example, when we talk about cultural barriers in India, we show others by touching the feet, whereas in foreign countries, they shake their hand. Or there are at places where they bend up to their knee. So each and every culture may have different ways of expressing their own gratitude or greeting, but this may not be acceptable at all the places. This creates two cultural barriers. Organizational structure barriers. Every organization may have different hierarchy, and these hierarchical groups may not be accepted by each and every organization or each and every individual. Whenever you are moving from one organization to another organization, you have to understand that the organizational structure may vary, and then the positions may vary. To give you an example, in certain organizations, people, they do call people with the first names, and in certain places people do call their colleagues or their boss with sir or madam. This could be one of the best examples of organizational structural barrier. Attitudinal barrier, where your thoughts are completely mismatching with the thoughts of the other person, then it creates two attitudinal. With the help of attitude, the perception that you have generated, the impressions that are created by us generates their perception. Whenever you see a person, and if you are happy with the first impression, automatically you feel happy and you feel delighted to interact. Moment once when the impression is negative, you try to see or you try to escape from the further interaction. That happens because of the perception barrier. Physiological barrier, because of the physique, because of the kind of object, the structure, there can be so many barriers which could be physiological. Say, for example, there is a differently abled person who cannot reach up to third storied building in order to take his or her class regularly each and every day, and he cannot come out or he cannot move out of the class regularly when compared to the other student. This is an example of physiological barrier. Technological and socio-religious barrier. This is one of the new concept which is coming up in the communication. There can be technological communication barrier where, for example, if you don't upgrade yourself and if you are not getting connected with the new concept, with the new technologies, then it creates or it generates to technological barrier. Socio-religious barriers are those where people have different social understanding, different religious background, and then they don't come up or they don't give up those old thoughts, or they still follow the traditional way of thinking. Then it generates to socio-religious barrier. So whenever these barriers are there, automatically hampers that it hampers your communication, and it may act as a barrier between you and your thought, which will be wrongly informed and wrongly intimated to the listener. So therefore it is very important to understand that whenever we are talking about communication, barriers of communication should be eliminated in order to have a free flow of communication. That's all in the first chapter of communication skill. So we discussed about mastering communication skills, we discussed about the objectives of communication skill, we understood what is the process of communication, we also understood the different types of communication, and ultimately if we really want to have a good communication, a good flow of communication, we need to avoid the barriers. That's all in the first chapter. Have a great time.